Good morning, everyone. Welcome into Southeastern 14. I am Blayne Gilmer, and we are here this morning on this crisp January 8th morning that I'm recording this. The good Lord has given us to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs, and each offseason, as we get into things and we're getting past the fallout from the college football playoff, from bowl season, from the transfer portal, all of those things, the first portal window, that is, everything of that nature. We like to begin our state of the program series, and we're going to start. It's similar to when a president of the United States or a governor of a state comes up and gives a State of the Union or a State of the State address. We are going to address the state of the Georgia Bulldogs under Kirby Smart, where things are, where things are going, things of that nature. So very excited to be doing that, as Georgia is in the middle of a run that is unmeasured by many in the entirety of the history of college football, despite falling short of their personal goal in 2023. A lot to be excited about in 2024. And there's also a lot to be excited about here on the channel, guys. There's a little bit of a rebrand coming, as we are currently Southeastern 14, but that's changing with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, because now there's more than 14 teams in the SEC. So we'll be doing a little bit of a rebrand and ramping up our coverage, not only in SEC football, as with more teams coming on board, but also SEC baseball, basketball. Blake Lovell, Chris Lee, Max Barr all do a great job here on the channel as well. So if you like all SEC sports, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And also, guys, real quick before we get into it, we want to tell you about our partners at Bet Online. As we are a part of the Believe Network and have a partnership with Bet Online, where you can find all of the major sports that are in action this week, with the college football playoffs ready to kick off the national championship game tonight. As I'm recording this, Bet Online is your #1 destination for all your sports wagering info, including news on pro football as the playoffs are about to get started. The NBA is in midseason form, upcoming UFC fights, and the NHL games this season. Head over to the website, betonline.ag, to get into the action and see all of the updated odds for the week. It's important to stay on those updated odds, guys. There's a lot of value to be found there. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's all caps, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposits. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, the Georgia Bulldogs, the state of the program for the Georgia Bulldogs can quite simply be surmised in one word: elite. Yes, Kirby Smart likes to say you're either elite or you're not. Georgia is an elite program. It is the measuring stick in college football. It has won 2 of the last 3 national championships over the last 3 seasons. The Georgia Bulldogs are a outstanding 42-2 with an SEC championship, and like I said, 2 national championships. And during Kirby Smart's tenure, they've won every major bowl game that there is to win. They've won the Rose Bowl, they've won the Sugar Bowl, they've won the Orange Bowl, they've won every single one that you could go out and think about in terms of those traditional big bowl games. And when it comes down to it, Kirby Smart is just doing things at a level that I'm not even sure that he can sustain for a long time in terms of the energy and the effort that he puts in. But as of now, it does not look like Georgia is going anywhere. They are the betting favorites to win the national championship in 2024. And that is due in large part to what they have coming back on the offensive side of the football. If you look at things, guys, the recruiting year over year, Kirby Smart continues to put together at least, at minimum, top 3 classes, and has put together in this last offseason a #1 high school recruiting class that is only going to fortify what was returning for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2024. Now, on the offensive side of the football specifically, looking forward, this is going to be year 2 of Carson Beck and Mike Bobo together. They had an outstanding season together in 2023. Carson Beck played himself into position where he had a real decision to make and was getting some feedback of possibly a first-round type guy, but elects to come back to the University of Georgia. Said he waited his turn to be the quarterback at Georgia, wanted to looked around at the team around him and saw what was coming back and saw possibly what it could do for him. It is not unrealistic based on what Carson Beck did as his first year as a starter to look forward to 2024 and say he is not only has this team as a national championship favorite, but he's going to be heavily involved in the Heisman Trophy conversation, and he could also end up being the number 1 overall draft pick in the 2025 NFL draft based on how he plays in the 2024 season. So Georgia, with Carson Beck coming, they have their returning starting quarterback coming back from a team that went 13-1 and came up just short in the SEC championship game to Alabama being their only blemish. Of course, a 63-3 demolishing of Florida State in that Orange Bowl that mattered to Georgia, and Florida State simply packed it in, and Georgia punished them for that. 4 offensive linemen coming back with starting experience. Dylan Fairchild got to start a lot at left guard when Georgia had to mix things up when Amarius Mims went down and they moved Xavier Truss to right tackle. Then that left guard position open and Dylan Fairchild stepped in. So he is now a returning starter that comes back. Tate Ratledge at the right guard spot is coming back. So Fairchild and Ratledge at the guards. And then if you have Ernest Green, who was the left tackle the entire season for Georgia, and Xavier Truss, like I said, a super senior, is going to be coming back at right tackle and be able to have four starting offensive linemen. Now, that's starting experience. Not guaranteed they're going to start. Monroe Freeland could beat out Xavier Truss. There could be a combination of different guys. There's lots of guys competing. Micah Morris may have something to say about that situation. You got to insert Jared Wilson at center for Cedric Von Prawn, who's one of the greats to ever play at the University of Georgia as he moves on. But, guys, 4 starting offensive linemen, at least 4 players with starting experience at offensive line in front of Carson Beck. That is a huge deal for Georgia, especially with 2 running backs moving on to the NFL with Kendall Milton and Dejan Edwards. They're going to be moving on from the program. That is a big deal and really helps kind of set the tone for things when you have that kind of experience up front. Stacey Searles and Kirby Smart have to be excited about that as things go forward. Losing Brock Bowers, quite simply, you're losing one of the best players in the history of college football, regardless of position. So that is never easy to fill, but Oscar Delp got the experience of what life after Carson Beck was going to be like this last year when Bowers had his ankle injury, and Oscar Delp acquitted himself quite nicely. The young man is a talented player. Just because you are at the same position as one of the all-time greats doesn't mean that you aren't in a great position to produce for the program. And Oscar Delp is certainly in that. Particularly excited if you're a Georgia fan about what you saw from Oscar Delp in the Orange Bowl blocking wise. The young man was punishing people on the edge and on the perimeter and making some key blocks there in the run game. So Oscar Delp will lead that tight end group that it also saw some flashes from both Pierce Sperlin and Lawson Lucky in that Orange Bowl as things move forward. And Todd Hartley just continues to load up the tight end room in ways that I don't know that has been seen before in quite some time. So Georgia is immensely talented and has the experience of Oscar Delp. At the running back position, Georgia is definitely the most least experienced that Georgia will have been with the people taking the bulk of the carries. Like I said, and Milton and Edwards have moved on to the NFL, but looking to get Branson Robinson back from that horrific knee injury that he had, the patella rupture and all that kind of stuff that he's coming back from. You know, that'll be huge to get a guy like him that was set to have a big year this past year, get him back. Roderick Robinson, of course, is there. You have Andrew Paul, who never really, I don't think, got his confidence back from his ACL tear the previous year. In 2023 was kind of a laying the foundation year for Andrew Paul, so he looks to take a big step forward. Of course, Cash Jones is a walk-on that got to a lot of playing time this year. We'll see how things go with him. He's a good special teams player going forward. But Georgia brings in 3 freshmen, one particularly in Nate Frazier that could make a big impact right away. Chauncey Bowens, another talented running back, and Dwight Phillips is a speedster, 10-1 in the 100-meter, a guy out of Pebblebrook High School there in the state of Georgia. So the running back position would have kind of been fine as is, but Georgia goes out and they take Trevor Etienne from Florida in the transfer portal, who was Florida, Georgia, one of Georgia's biggest rivals. They get him in the portal, and he was Florida's best running back over the last 2 seasons, heavily underutilized, I believe, in 2023 by the Gators, and that's why he found himself in the portal. And I think that is just, it cannot be stated how big of a deal that is for Georgia going forward, and he's going to be a dynamic player. And then as far as wide receiver, you lose a lot of experience there with Ladd McConkey and Marcus Rosenby, Jack Saint going to the NFL. But when it comes down to it, that's why Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett were brought in last year from Mississippi State and Missouri, respectively. They kind of assimilated themselves and got used to Georgia's offense. They'll be looking to take bigger roles next year. Dylan Bell, of course, is a guy that produced as a freshman and really started to flash at the end of this past season with his sophomore year. They'll be looking for big things out of him. He's a versatile player. He can line up in the backfield. He can do a lot of different things. And then, of course, Georgia has added 3 transfers at the wide receiver position. You have Colby Young, a big 6'5", physical, just go up and get it, 50-50 ball type winner from Miami. You have London Humphreys, who was a freshman All-American at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, that great feeder program as it is now that just develops guys for a couple years, doesn't win a whole lot of games and then ships them out to other programs. Humphreys can fly. He's a guy that it'll go a long way towards helping things out in that slot position. And then Michael Jackson III, who comes over from the USC Trojans, has a couple of years of experience there for the Trojans. Never really, I don't think, hit his potential there. So we'll see what happens with him at the University of Georgia. But offensively, Georgia looks to be strong in 2024. Like I said, year 2 under Mike Bobo, Carson Beck, and having Carson Beck back alone, guys, with going into road environments like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Austin, Texas, and Oxford, Mississippi, against the caliber that those teams and those defenses that he will face in 2024 and Georgia will face in 2024 will be. That is huge, having that kind of experience back to lead you into those situations. So I think that is a big deal for the Georgia Bulldogs. Defensively, 2023 was not what you would call, a banner year for Georgia defensively. There were times where they gave up big plays. There were times where Georgia was uncharacteristic in being able to let people run the football on them. And I think you're going to see kind of a return to prominence along the defensive front with Warren Brinson coming back, with Nazir Stackhouse coming back. I think those are some key, retentions there. And then you're going to add in some, I think, guys that are going to take a next step along that defensive front. Kristen Miller, Tyron Ingram, Dawkins. You got Jamal Jarrett and Jordan Hall that should play bigger roles after being there as freshmen and kind of getting their feet wet, and now are going to play some bigger roles there. I think Georgia's probably looking to add another guy in the transfer portal via, on that defensive front that'll be able to help things out. But I think Georgia, I think you'll see the rotation have a few more bodies in there, and you'll be able to expect Georgia to be a little bit stiffer against the run. I think they're going to move Michael Williams from defensive end position to the jack position. I think you'll see him stand up more and utilize his athleticism on the edge a little bit more. Of course, Chaz Chambliss is coming back, who's played a ton of football as well. You got Samuel Mpemba, and you have Gabe Harris, who ought to contribute along the edge, either at defensive end or jack as well. So you've got a lot more depth, I think, on the edge going into 2024 than you had in 2023. Georgia got caught with when Jamon Dumas-Johnson went down. They were a little bit thin at inside linebacker, had to play some freshmen and Raylan Wilson, who probably would have been a lot further along had he not got hurt in the spring. And then you had CJ Allen, who's really solidified himself as being kind of that next guy for Georgia at inside linebacker. Smile Munden returning is a huge deal at the inside linebacker position. So Georgia really, really strong along the front seven. Some of the questions are going to be, okay, what happens on the back end of the defense? Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard gone, going to the NFL. So that leaves a corner position that is open. Julian Humphreys electing to stay was huge. He played hokey pokey back and forth, put the right foot in the portal, took it out. Actually never went in the portal, but said, hey, I'm going to flirt with going in the portal. Okay, no, I'm going to stay. I'm going to try to go in the portal, and Georgia ends up convincing him to stay. So a speedster out of the state of Texas that had programs in the state of Texas that were just straight up tampering with him, trying to get him to come in there. Georgia retains him. Daniel Harris, same thing. He actually, I believe, never entered the portal, but it was announced his intentions to enter the portal. And guys, this is all about leverage these days, and players have leverage, and you can't blame him, but he ends up big, long-armed corner that is going to be able to play that man coverage that Kirby Smart likes and be able to be physical out on the edge. So it looks like Daniel Harris, Julian Humphrey, and Dalen Everett will be competing for those corner spots on the outside. Then of course, Malachi Starks is going to hold down the safety position back there. You got Dan Jackson, who should be returning to the program in 2024. Jonell Aguero steps up and will be able to play there. So, guys, there's a lot of talent on that back end. Guys like Ja'Cory Thomas, guys like David Daniel Sisavon, guys like Chris Peel. There's so many guys that can be utilized in different ways. And then, of course, at the corner position, and also different athleticism and things like that, guys coming in, you can't forget about a guy like an Ellis Robinson who could come in and start right away, potentially maybe the best player in the country overall in his class. And Georgia is just loaded in that recruiting class as they've got guys that come in. I don't think outside of Ellis Robinson and Nate Frazier, you're going to see too many guys that are going to be asked to play early, but that's where they are in 2024. I think all of that depth, all of the guys returning, what they've added in the transfer portal, all of this kind of culminates in, okay, you got the quarterback, you've got the protection along the offensive front, you've got the depth along the defensive front and the front seven. You're kind of breaking in a new corner, a new safety, new star, things like that on the back end. So that's going to be the bigger question of anything. But then you go look at the specialist, and you got Peyton Woodring, who should be there for another couple of years. For Georgia had a strong freshman year. Brett Thorson comes back. He's hardly ever used in the punt game for Georgia, but when he is used, he's a weapon. Also hilarious on social media. So the state of the Georgia Bulldogs football program is elite, as I mentioned, and it's only looking to stay that way as long as Kirby Smart is at the helm, and that looks to be for the foreseeable future. Even if he does get closer to 55, between 55, 60 years old, and end up saying, you know what, I've made enough money, I've spent enough time, I'm gonna move on. But for But right now, for the foreseeable future, the Georgia Bulldog football program is elite and looks to stay that way. So, guys, we can talk about a lot of things in the comments. Go ahead and leave those, and we'll be answering those as well. But make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Remember that we are presented by Bet Online, and we will catch you guys next time to talk more Georgia football, more SEC football, right here on your home for all things SEC sports, Southeastern 14.